It begins with a flash, not a sound, not an explosion, just light, a white pulse brighter than the sun. For a fraction of a second, the entire skyline of Washington, D.C. disappears inside it. Windows shatter across the city. Cars stop in the middle of the road. Thousands of phones suddenly lose signal. And for millions of people across the eastern United States, the same thought arrives at the same moment. Something just happened. But no one yet understands what. Because nuclear explosions don't announce themselves. They erase things first and explain themselves later. Within the next 24 hours, the United States government will activate the most extreme emergency protocols in its history. Cities will shut down. Airspace will close. Military forces will move into positions designed for the worst war imaginable. And the entire world will begin asking the same terrifying question. Was this the beginning of World War III? At 9:14 a.m. Eastern Time, a nuclear device detonates above central Washington, D.C. The blast occurs several hundred meters above ground, an air burst, designed to maximize destruction. Within the first second, a fireball forms nearly a kilometer wide. Temperatures inside it reach several million degrees, hotter than the surface of the sun. Everything inside the immediate center vaporizes. Buildings, vehicles, people. Entire city blocks vanish in an instant. The shockwave follows milliseconds later. Glass shatters across miles of city streets. Cars flip. Office towers lose their windows. A rolling wall of pressure races outward from the explosion. Within seconds, much of downtown Washington is unrecognizable. The Capitol dome is partially collapsed. Entire government buildings are burning. Thousands of alarms activate simultaneously. But inside the blast zone, there is no alarm. Only silence. Across Washington, survivors begin emerging from damaged buildings. Many are disoriented. Some cannot see. The flash has temporarily blinded thousands of people. Power grids in parts of the city fail. Cell towers overload instantly. Every phone attempts to connect at the same time. Within minutes, communications collapse. Police radios fill with chaotic messages. Explosion near the Capitol. Mass casualties. Possible aircraft crash. But within 15 minutes, satellite imagery confirms the truth. The explosion was nuclear. Inside the Pentagon, emergency protocols activate. The U.S. Strategic Command begins analyzing missile detection systems. Early warning satellites show no incoming missile launches. That creates a terrifying possibility. If this was a nuclear weapon, it may not have been delivered by an intercontinental missile, which means the origin is unclear. Meanwhile, the president is immediately moved to a secure location. Airspace over the entire East Coast begins shutting down. Commercial flights are redirected away from Washington. Military aircraft scramble into the sky, not to attack, but to prepare. Because the next decision could determine the future of the planet. Fires begin spreading across central Washington. The blast has ruptured gas lines, collapsed electrical infrastructure, destroyed fire stations. Emergency crews struggle to reach the worst areas. Radiation detectors begin reporting dangerous levels. Hospitals across the region activate disaster protocols. But Washington, D.C.'s largest hospitals are already overwhelmed. Thousands of injured survivors flood emergency rooms. Many suffer severe burns. Others are injured by flying debris, and some show the first signs of radiation exposure. Medical staff face an impossible situation. Too many patients, not enough resources, and still no answers about what caused the attack. Federal authorities begin evacuating large sections of Washington, D.C. Highways quickly become gridlocked. Thousands of people attempt to leave the city at the same time. Military checkpoints appear along major roads. Radiation monitoring stations begin scanning vehicles exiting the area. But panic spreads faster than official instructions. Rumors move through the crowds. More attacks are coming. Another bomb has been found. Foreign missiles are already in the air. None of it confirmed, but fear rarely waits for confirmation. Television broadcasts across the globe show the same images. Smoke rising from Washington. Emergency vehicles moving through destroyed streets. Military helicopters circling overhead. Governments around the world hold emergency meetings. Nuclear powers raise alert levels, because if Washington has been attacked, retaliation could come next. Stock markets immediately crash, oil prices surge, international air travel begins shutting down. Within hours, the attack has already triggered a global crisis. The U.S. military begins repositioning forces. Strategic bombers are moved to higher readiness. Ballistic missile submarines receive updated command protocols. Fighter jets patrol American airspace continuously. None of these actions mean war has begun, but they ensure the United States is ready if it does. Inside military command centers, analysts search desperately for answers. Who launched the attack? How was the weapon delivered? And most importantly, is another one coming? Intelligence agencies begin tracing the weapon's origin. Radiation signatures provide clues. Every nuclear device leaves a unique fingerprint. By analyzing fallout particles, scientists can determine where the material was produced. But that analysis takes time, and time is exactly what world leaders do not have, because every minute without answers increases the risk of miscalculation. One wrong assumption could trigger a nuclear response, and that response could trigger another. The chain reaction of war. As darkness spreads across Washington, D.C., the fires become visible for miles. The skyline glows orange against the night sky. Rescue crews continue searching through rubble. Radiation levels remain dangerous in several districts. Entire neighborhoods are now evacuation zones. Temporary shelters open across nearby states. Thousands of displaced residents arrive with little more than the clothes they were wearing when the blast occurred. For many of them, home no longer exists. Satellite surveillance systems around the world remain on high alert. Missile detection networks scan the skies continuously. Military commanders fear the possibility of a second strike, because historically, nuclear attacks rarely occur alone. They are part of larger strategies, but no additional launches are detected, which creates another terrifying possibility. The attack may have been a single demonstration, a warning, or the act of a non-state actor, a terrorist organization. If that is the case, retaliation becomes far more complicated. You cannot retaliate against a country that did not launch the weapon. And yet, the pressure to respond grows stronger with every hour. Hospitals across the region begin running out of supplies. Burn units are filled beyond capacity. Medical helicopters transport the most critical patients to distant cities. Doctors face decisions no medical training can fully prepare them for. Who receives treatment first? Who must wait? And who cannot be saved at all? Radiation sickness begins appearing among those closest to the blast zone. Nausea, vomiting, weakness. The invisible effects of nuclear weapons reveal themselves slowly, but they are just as deadly as the explosion itself. Inside Washington's surviving government facilities, leaders face enormous pressure. The public demands answers. Foreign governments demand reassurance. Military commanders demand clarity. The president addresses the nation. The message is calm, measured, but the subtext is clear. The United States will respond. The only question is how, and against whom. Scientists analyzing radioactive debris begin identifying the weapon's origin. The material appears consistent with uranium enrichment processes used by specific nuclear programs. This information is immediately classified, because revealing it could escalate tensions instantly. Yet hiding it may delay necessary action. Every decision now carries enormous consequences. The wrong move could ignite global war, but inaction could invite another attack. American military forces remain on the highest alert since the Cold War. Missile defense systems remain active. Strategic bombers continue airborne patrols. Submarines remain hidden beneath the oceans, waiting, prepared for orders that everyone hopes will never come. Meanwhile, intelligence agencies continue working around the clock, because certainty is the only thing preventing escalation. 24 hours after the detonation, Washington, D.C. is still burning. Entire districts remain evacuated. Thousands are injured. Tens of thousands are displaced. The United States government continues operating from secure locations, but the capital itself is wounded. Across the world, people watch the news in disbelief. Because for decades, nuclear weapons existed mostly as abstract threats, deterrence, strategy, Cold War theory. Now, one has been used against the most powerful nation on Earth, and the world has entered unfamiliar territory, because the first day after a nuclear strike is only the beginning. The real danger comes next, not from the explosion itself, but from the decisions that follow it, decisions made by governments under pressure, military commanders under uncertainty, and leaders who now must choose between restraint and retaliation. And history has shown many times before, those decisions can change the fate of the entire world.